Hello, everyone. I don't know. I'm not really that excited because this is starting to feel like work. I'm not gonna lie. I reached 72 videos, so this is kind of making me feel exposed. But still, anytime I have an idea, I write it down as a video idea. Like, this is really actually promoting me extinguishing my thought process and me posting it as holding a lot of accountability. So, here we go. Uh, this video's note is business plan. And I don't know how much I talked about the business plan before, but ideally, uh, what I did last time was like outline some things, which I'm going to try to kind of like go around with you guys. So through the strategy analysis, like the best way I could think about it, right? So I figured there's a business model that I have to do. The problem with the business model, it's already a running business, and I can't make any decision on my own. But I can actually like target the business needs based on the goals that we're trying to reach, and then maybe like figure out some form of like root cause analysis, like why are we not really moving forward? Why are we not really like being able to take a step back? So while thinking about those, I was like online researching naturally, right? Because that's what I have to do. And I kind of saw like there you get like a lot of like things to think about. But the few that made sense to me when I came to this company was like talent acquisition and development, marketing and sales expansion, customer support and engagement, market research and analysis, like scaling metrics, KPIs, brand and reputation management. The model has to be scalable, the business model, and the leadership management development, basically, for because as we level up, some people are going to have to take charge. And one way or another, their training is not to just take charge, but to kind of like take care of the other people. Like I separate these two. I don't really think you being promoted to a different position means you're eligible to all the responsibilities because leveling up in a hierarchy normally kind of points out to all the to you basically taking control over a new kind of like domain. If we are to consider this from a domain's perspective, like now this is where I am located and everything under me becomes my responsibility. Normally, you get promoted because you were at a certain position, like a lower position, and you became more familiar with all the other things. So you leveling up requires you to actually be strong enough to handle that position from a work perspective, but also the position itself. I'm having an issue with this leadership part, by the way. I'm not gonna lie. Like the actual person who's in charge over there is perfect, but he's just like perfect for things to be the way they are. And there is some friction between me and him, and I'd actually probably like mention that in my next video or something. But then ideally, I started basically like diving into details and like what are the things that we could actually like start creating when it comes to these things. So I started going into them like talent acquisition, like establish the current positions. And when you're interacting with a business that's not really professionalized, like they do a lot of stuff. Each one of them does a lot of stuff. I know in a weird way they don't want to kind of like isolate the tasks between themselves. So I started asking questions like, how would your day look like if this wasn't something you're responsible on? And their response was more, then I'll have three extra free hours. And then I started asking questions, going like, what would you do in these 3 hours? Right? And that's something they can understand. I'm sorry, I'm going to write that down. What would you do if a certain responsibility is taken from you? So they wouldn't know it, and I started asking more questions, like, what would you actually do? What could be potentially something that you would actually like involve in your day that strengthens whatever you're doing right now. Well, they were very much limited to the, or I think that's a skill, by the way, that I have to maybe think about. Like, I don't know if anyone's ever noticed it, but can you write something while you're talking about something else? It's like a complete, like, it's a separation thing that you have to do. I really have to think of the sentence in my head first, establish it, like confirm it, and like completely trust that that's what I want. And then anything I talk about, my hand is doing something else. Right now, I'm trying it with typing, and it's not really working. But so like diving into the details, right? The nitty gritty stuff. These are the things that kind of like make you understand more what you potentially do. And I think that's the core of business analysis. As I read the book, I realize it's all about the questions you ask and where you come from them and for what purpose are you asking them. And it's funny because I talked about this before. Like it's always about the thoughts. Like what am I when you're waking up and deciding today I'm going to work, like do you think what I have to do today or what I want to do today or what could be the things I do today or you just have a job that repeats itself? And so unconsciously, I think like because if more than one person is looking for like at a bigger picture, they tend to harmonize, and sometimes that harmony is not necessarily the best for the bigger picture, but it's still enough to for the bigger picture to kind of like sustain itself and exist. And what I mean enough, what do I mean by enough? Like I cannot plan a building the same way I cannot build a building the same way I build a house. So if we're looking at a bigger picture, like what I'm looking at is uh, the construction, a shelter, and then basically, okay, so like if I want a house, I'm not saying it's easier to build. I'm just saying it takes a lot more technicalities to go for a building. You don't want it to collapse. You don't want it to be lopsided. While a house, you can get away with a couple of walls going instead of straight. Trust me, like I lived in Africa. Sometimes the whole structure is skewed. But also in Lebanon, like there are funny buildings in Beirut that are kind of like lopsided or just like fucking shitty. There's one in next to the ocean in Beirut that has like literally like steel bars on top of the on top of the on top of the road, like cross the road in order to keep the building like up. Imagine that, fucking good shit. But anyway, so asking these questions like not went nowhere fast. Like started giving me a whole lot of frustration, especially with leadership. My attempt was literally to just allow them to explore how I'm thinking because they want me to advise them, but they're refusing to listen to the advice. So after having this meeting with them where we discussed the business plan, I started explaining like more into detail and be like, okay, so like when we were having a conversation about marketing and when we were talking about the sales and everything like this, and their eyes kind of shut up in the meeting. And I was like, okay, so the things what we're trying to do was what was like to build the customer models, to like create brand books. And we did 3 brands, which I built myself, and they're on the same strategy, basically concept. And then I was like, we have to establish strategies for the. I have to establish strategies for the next 6 months because like there's not just one marketing campaign. Some marketing campaigns are temporary because it's a holiday and we kind of have to promote for it before then. Some marketing campaigns are very much like weekly, daily. Some are monthly. Some are annually, like a full year. Like if we're doing a brand awareness, it has to be consistent enough for enough people to see it in order for targeted ads that we build. I started trying to explain those things for them. They started feeling better about my existence because, like, they were looking at it from a more imposing, like, this guy's coming to ruin our jobs. And then I started telling them, okay, like, because my marketing plan is basically a couple of campaigns. And I asked them if they would be involved, want to be involved in that, and they were like they would be very much interested because that's what they thought I was going to do. That's the only thing they thought I was going to do. And maybe I didn't explain it properly. Maybe they just couldn't understand it. Maybe they thought what they wanted was, again, like it's all about, I really have been through these things. Because at one point I remember like I was actually trying to like talk to people about the things that I'm trying to learn and get over. And I did a boot camp, which I like dove into the details of how I was experiencing every day. And I even wrote a blog about it. And I know how we unconsciously resist and consciously feel some kind of way. So I really wanted to just kind of allow them to just on their own start establishing themselves. through whatever it is they're competent with, but they're refusing to kind of point that out even. Well, not they're only one out of the three. So I decided to work with what I have. And by the time I went to the marketing campaign, I didn't explain the whole thing. I would want to do a video about it. But like my primary thing was to-dos. Like we have a to-do list. We have to link the Instagram. We have to link the Facebook pixel. We have to create all these like technical stuff for us to start advertising perfect. And there's always like the on-ground stuff that we have to do. There are a couple of banners. We talked to a couple of agents, and I was like, we have to get them over with them. And naturally, yes, we're ready. We're thinking about it, but they want me to do the design. And again, they expect me to do a design and send it to them for them to approve. I understand that logic, dude, because all of them kind of like don't want to do any work, and I'm the one who's stuck trying to explain to them that my job is not to do your work, my job is to do mine. And at that point, I started explaining to them my weekly reporting system that I do to the boss, and basically how my engagement with them has its own like side in the report, and my engagement with myself and my work has its different side. Because from me, he just wants like a verbal explanation of what's going on, and he wants to see basically the work that I'm doing, the marketing plan, the business plan, the model, all the things that we're trying to target. And as I basically progressed in explaining that to them, I could tell that their faces are kind of like shifting. The fun part about it is because like they kind of realize that hey, I'm really just there to give my opinion, and ultimately that my opinion matters more when it comes to like the growth of the business. But I'm not interfering with the business itself, because ultimately, if they can't pull through and my business plan gets approved, then they have to actually hire somebody to fill the gap, which means whatever harmony they have right now is still going to be shaken. So at the very least, they could either rise to the occasion or share it with somebody else. Uh, it was fun. After that, I had another meeting with the guy in charge, where we actually had a discussion. So, but that I'll explain that in the next video.